he says, is exactly what a conservation area, what a land manager wants on their properties. Someone to be looking, being their eyes and ears of the land manager. So they would love any feedback that you see that's negative. I've said this before, we've never ever had a problem. There's never been any reports made, so. But that's one of the reasons they love having the geocachers around. That, and they get to read the logs. And they love what you guys say in your logs, and believe me, it makes its rounds to other conservation areas that don't have the same strong positive experiences that South Nation's had. So, and that's respected. I mean, there's areas in Ontario, conservation areas that said, we don't allow geocaching. Or we're not going to allow geocaching where the cache is located more than 1 meter off the trails. Tim did a lot of work when the guidelines were incorporated in South Nation. They felt they should have some from a legal point of view. Tim did a very, very good job of negotiating. I was involved with that. We talked back and forth a lot. But we're not restricted that way because we were able to convince South Nation, and they understood the manner of the sport is even if we're more than 1 meter off a trail, we're not going to put it in an ecologically dangerous or insignificant area. We're going to put it somewhere that doesn't do any damage. That we want to leave nothing but footprints behind when we leave the CA, and they agree with that. So we're very lucky in our areas that our land managers here, and I was with Stormont Dennis and Glengarry earlier today, and the person that's in charge of the Glengarry Trails. Glengarry Trails have all new signage up this year, and the geocaching symbol is on them. So we're really making, we have a very, very good reputation in Eastern Ontario as responsible geocachers. It's a great way to be. It's nice people come up to me and say, oh, so you're with the geocache? Yeah. Well, you guys are a great bunch of people, so you're the great bunch of people. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks. So we're going to dive right into the main portion of the Wherigo Workshop. So we're very open with how we're going to format the evening, but so we've discussed in the past the Wherigo Kit program. So that was the basic Wherigo Workshop. So of course Ranger Fox designed that system, and we're going to avoid going over that tonight just because it's something that I feel very comfortable with, and that if anyone needs more help with that later, there's a link in the event listing that you can go to find the link to that website. But if you need any more help with that, you can just talk to me or some of the other people that have experience with it here, and anyway, we'll help you through that. But tonight's focus is more, what do you do once you know your way around how to make the basic Wherigo? What are the other things that you can maybe expand to? So just to lead our way into that, so the Wherigo kit was, again, it's designed to be very simple, and because it's simple and really sort of foolproof, there's a lot of things that you can't do in there to keep you out of trouble. So to get into some of the other more fun aspects, I guess, of Wherigo creation, there is the original Wherigo Builder released by Groundspeak in 2008, May 29, 2008. That was their last update, as you can see on that webpage. And it hasn't been updated since. So it's a program that still works, but there's a lot of efficiency that could be added to it. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about the original Wherigo Builder, and well, the first hurdle is how to even install it, because it's not compatible. It's not normally compatible without a couple extra steps with a Windows. Not a Windows XP computer. If you wanted Windows 7, 8, 10, it's not going to work. So that's the first thing tonight is, how do you install the Wherigo Builder to build your Wherigo?
I think you're on.
Yeah, so that's our question.
Yeah, I'm going just to go over about installing it, how to use Groundspeak's Builder, go over zones, characters, anything that you want to get you up and running. So, and we'll be here for as long as you want. So if I say something, I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down and no problem. So as Tim mentioned though, Groundspeak's Builder, released in 2008 along with Wherigo. It was made though for a 32-bit computer, so lower RAM, and nowadays every computer that you see is 64-bit. So we're going to run into some problems. Additionally, Google has updated their Maps application, and therefore, natively, Groundspeak's Builder is not going to be able to make the right calls. So there are two things that we have to solve for this in order for you to get up and running. So I'm going to go through and just show you step by step how to install the builder, where to go to get the updated files that you need, and where to put them. So first thing though, and there are other builders, we'll go over them later on, I'll just mention them though. Okay, first thing though, on main Wherigo webpage, wherigo.com, over on the right side, there is Wherigo Builder, still in alpha, not even in beta. So just click download builder, it says yada yada, here are the requirements. Gee, I think that we meet these requirements by now. So I'm going to download builder, and save it wherever the computer wants to save it. So, maybe you will catch up. Okay. So I'm just going to run that and install it on this computer. Next. Everyone that doesn't really matter. Next. Yes, I agree.
You don't read all
No. It's all boilerplate. We're going to install it anyway, right?
They're all going to say the same thing.
Yeah. All right. We installed that, and it has a link directly on our desktop. So just to show you, I'm going to try to run it, and I'm going to cause it to have a problem. So you can see what we're trying to get around first, why we need this. So, looks like it runs. Hey, that's great. Well, and I'll go over these steps step by step. I'm going to blaze through them just to show you where we have the problem. So, it's going to say, oh, okay, I'm going to build a cartridge. I'm going to set a location, wherever this is, I don't know. All right, hey, it looks like that works. I want to save it to my desktop for a moment. All right, it's saved. Now, later on I do some things. I add stuff. I put a lot of creativity into this. And I save that again. Think, okay, it's great. I close it out of the builder. Yes, I want to save it. It saved it, great. So now I go back into the builder later on, and I want to work on my cartridge again. So I come back up, file, the cartridge that I just made, which is a blank cartridge. So I come up to file, I do that, oh, error reading cartridge. Well, crud. All that effort, and now I can't read the cartridge. So that's what we're going to go around first step. That's because this program is 32-bit, and it's trying to read something in 64-bit, can't do that. So we do have some issues there. So get around that. We go to the Wherigo forums. Everyone know how to get there? Cool. All right.
Maybe just point it out anyway, in case someone didn't know how to get there.
Sure. It's in the main Groundspeak forums. So let's see. So on forums.groundspeak.com. So these are the main forums. And way down here, geocache types and additional GPS-based gameplay. They moved it. So over here, there's Wherigo. So I'm going to click on Wherigo, and I'm at the Wherigo forums. So the things that you need are in building Wherigo cartridges. There are two, and I've pinned them right up to the top, as well as a lot of other things. But first thing you need, Wherigo Builder and 64-bit Windows. That will solve this problem. So great. Look into here, and go down. There is this one post I always look at that says it works. Lots Smiley faces, yay. So there's this zip file here, Wherigo Builder, downloaded by 2,400 people. So I'm going to download that, and I'm going to save it wherever Firefox likes to save these files. All right, so inside there's just this one file, Wherigo Builder. So what you do is you're going to copy it, and there are instructions as well in here too. It says, once you install the builder, copy it here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into Program Files, x86, so that's where it says, Groundspeak, Wherigo Builder. So, Groundspeak, Wherigo Builder. And those are all the files for the builder. So I'm just going to paste it there. I'm going to replace it. All right. Everyone with me so far? So, yeah. As I said, I was going fast. Okay. Okay. All right. So what's going on is you have the builder installed, but it's not quite the right format. So what we need to do is we needed to go to the forum and download this new file. And once we got the new file, it's in a zip file. You extract it from the zip file, which you just double click on the zip file, and then you see Wherigo Builder in there.
Extract to where?
Anywhere you want,
Okay.
as long as you know where you're extracting it.
You have to remember.
So, okay. So for here, this is where Firefox downloaded it. Wherigo Builder. It's a zip file, and it's highlighted. So I just double clicked on it here, and it came up with this file. So I thought, okay, so, oh, thanks. Let's see. So I just copy it, and let's do it this way. Let's copy this here, and I'm going to go to, I'll just do it this way. I'm going to go up here and paste, like that. Okay. That good? Okay. And it has all the Wherigo stuff.
So the extract file has all that in it?
No,
The zip file?
the zip file only has this one part, that one file here.
Okay.
But it replaces the old.
That's right. You're replacing the old. You're
The
replacing
old
the
file.
Groundspeaks. So you just
the
Copy
standard
it.
old file.
Okay.
and that's all. Yeah, there is a technical reason for it. I'm not really going to go into it, except for that they made it so that it can be run correctly on a 64-bit computer. That's all that we really need to
Why does
mention.
the Groundspeak just update it?
I've asked. They mentioned first, well, we're going to have to find someone who can get the files off of our, yeah.
So
Yeah, I've asked, to put it simply, I've asked Groundspeak to do a lot of things, and unless it's a showstopper, in other words, Wherigo.com is down, then they're not going to touch this. I've asked that, and that's why the Wherigo Foundation that I've been setting up, I'm trying to work with Groundspeak in order to let Groundspeak, let us run Wherigo for them. And after that, the site will be updated, but more importantly, you'll be able to locate Wherigo cartridges directly on your phone, download them very easily on the phone, log them on your phone, everything right from the phone. You won't really even need to go on the site. There are also other fun stuff that I've added to the Wherigo Foundation site, but outside the topic. Okay, we have the builder set up so far. So I'm going to run the builder again. It pops up, just like last time. And now I'm going to go and open my cartridge. Hey, it opens. Wonderful. Now I can begin making stuff. And let me go over the other fix. I'm trying not to get it too ahead of myself on that. When the other fix is Google Maps. And on this builder, when there's something called the emulator. And so once you have a cartridge that you want to test out, you want to try out, see how it works, you can go into the emulator tool on this builder. And you'll be able then to drag a lackey or whatever icon you have around and act like you're going into this zone. You're going into that one, you're interacting with these characters. So you get to test it from the comfort of your home before you actually go out on the trail. The problem is, as I mentioned, Google updated their maps to version 3. This uses version 2, so something had to be done. So I went in and I edited the emulator file necessary for the map in order to enable this once more. So here's how we do it. Again, back into the forums. There's one that says the emulator has a Google Maps ABI key error and crashes. Google Maps, good. And we go down. I'm just looking for one of mine that I want. I hide some of the old versions on here. That's what so I'm looking for one of the new versions. Okay. I'm going to use this one for the hang of it. And sometimes that happens in the forum, which means you have to find something else. Yep. So later on, and I remember some other people complaining in the forum, hey, where are the files? The forum dumped them. So I have to find the link that I made. Unfortunately, you only have to do this one time. Okay, try downloading them from here if you have trouble. Good. All right, save that again. So in case anyone is, since you all are taking notes, look for my link, my post on July 16th of 2013. And that has the right URL for it. I eventually got fed up with the forum and posted them on one of my websites. That way I could link to it here. Okay. So you've downloaded it. What to do with it? So I opened it. And there's a README file that tells you exactly what to do. All these instructions, one at a time. So if you ever, so when you download this, just read through this and it'll jog your memory about what to do. So there are two. I'm going to do this one right now. Double click. And there's this map file. So I'm trying to avoid using shortcut keys. Okay, so I'm going to copy. And once more, right where we copied the builder replacement again, I'm just going to paste it here. And you're done. That's it. You don't need to futz with the builder again. It is ready for you to build cartridges. No other thing. Just one-time setup, that's it. Okay. So let's start by creating a cartridge. And I'm just going to highlight some of the things that Wherigo can do, some of the gotchas as well. Because there are some, if you're not really familiar with what Wherigo does. And Wherigo Kit, though, I've made it so it does that stuff and handles it for you in the background. And now, once you finally begin diving more into Wherigo, then you're going to have to know a little bit more about those gotchas. One of the ones that you'll hear later on is about dialogues and subsequent dialogues. I'll mention that again. Let's see. Okay. So I'm just going to make a new cartridge. And I'm not very creative right now, so I'm going to call it part. So this is the first screen that comes up. It's all about the cartridge details. Just what are you going to name it? What description are you going to give it? Where do you want it to be located? What's your name? Stuff
These
like
are
that.
all editable down
Yes.
the road?
These are all editable, they will remain editable for you.
Okay.
So I'm going to call it a cart, and I'm just going to do the description as test. The activity types really don't play much right now into Wherigo itself. You can't very easily go onto the website and say, hey, I want to do a tour guide type cartridge. Most people these days seem to just say, oh, it's a geocache cartridge. But the cartridge types were an interesting idea to try to get people to say, well, I want to do maybe this type of game. I want to do this type of thing, but I don't think as many people pay attention to it right now.
Do they work?
Yes, they do. Yeah, one of the few things sometimes work. I'm going to call it geocache, and the next part is coordinate entry. Well, most people are familiar with the coordinates, maybe, but we're not quite in that format right now. Instead, it wants decimal degrees. Well, that's no good. Cancel, cancel. So we go up here in preferences. And for units of measure, let's change it to degrees, minutes, dot minutes. Because that's the format that everyone as geocachers are familiar with. Okay. So I'm going to go back up. One more time. Create new cartridge, cart. Description. Geocache. Okay, good. Set. So let's do. And for west, I'm trying to get it pretty close to here.
Don't need the zero?
No. In fact, I could do this too. Yeah. Now, I actually don't need that. Same thing with up here. Now, I can do something like this if I want. But you don't need the leading zeros.
Okay.
So I'm going to set it there. And starting location description, it can be whatever would be helpful. Maybe roadside parking. I have no idea where the coordinates are for this, so it's probably not going to be roadside parking. Now, one thing that you'll have to be aware of for the builder, since it's old, the set from address, anytime you come across that, anywhere else in the builder, don't use that because it won't work. It uses something old from Yahoo, and it can't find it. Same thing with creating a zone from a map. Can't do that. Just use your GPS and calculate the coordinates. There is a way, though, on Google Maps for satellite view that you can just go on satellite view and you can just click on that and it gives you coordinates on satellite view. Up here, version numbers really don't matter here. Company, whatever, if you want to have a company, you can, author, put whoever you want. Now, there's one checkbox so far that I didn't go over. Use logging when playing this cartridge. What that is Groundspeak had some sort of vision where people are playing the cartridges and you enable logging as an author, and later on when they mark the cartridge as complete and upload their save file, then you'll be able to use this logging in order to figure out, okay, this person had a little difficulty here, or I intended this walk to only take 10 minutes, but for some odd reason they're taking 20 minutes to do this walk. Are they finding a cache? Are they kind of bushwhacking it instead of going around on the trail? What? So that was what logging was, but never really took off, so you don't have to worry about that. So, okay. And again, I'm just going to call it cart. Yes, I want to replace that. Okay. This is the main screen for the builder. And on the left side, it has all the fun stuff where you have zones, and zones are locations, just places that you take people to. Just any geographic location, if it involves coordinates, it's a zone.
Are zones always rectangular?
No. I would suggest going ahead and making them rectangular. Thank you for the question, as well because some people still use Garmin Oregons, Garmin Colorados to play Wherigo. And Garmin units, I found, with the zone size that a lot of people like to use, only tend to use the center point for the zone and not whatever shape you want it in. So if you make some sort of triangle for the zone, it's not really going to work on a Garmin. It's just going to be once someone gets to the zone. I'll go over some other things as well once I begin making a zone. Some of the other player apps, I think they do now do the zone shape correctly, but I just suggest to everyone just act like it's a point. Makes things a lot easier. Okay, then we have items, and that's exactly what it means. Let's say that you're building a fantasy cartridge, and maybe someone has to take some key item, maybe a key to a dungeon or a key to a door or something, and go over to another zone and maybe unlock a door or unlock a treasure chest for another item. So that's what an item is. Anything that would later on appear in the player's inventory. And I don't know how much we're going to go into some things tonight, but I did at least want to give you an overview of what all of these mean. Characters are anything that you can interact with within Wherigo. Any NPCs, non-player characters, then you can go up, you can talk to them. Maybe in this one other fantasy cartridge, you have to buy a sword for a certain amount of gold, and then go on and defeat the dragon. So you need an NPC. That way the player can come into this zone, maybe the NPC's workshop, and then you just talk to the blacksmith, if you will, and buy the sword from him. You can also do things like one of my cartridges, there's this little girl that lost her iPod, and you actually go in and help her find it. So in order to initiate the game in the cartridge, in order to introduce what's going on, you first actually have to find the girl in the park. And it's not too bad because she's in one zone and all these characters need to be in a zone. So there's one zone that pops up at the beginning of the cartridge. You just walk over to that zone and she's right in the zone, and it's like, okay, you see a girl named Sadie. Click, click, oh, Sadie lost her iPod, and you go and help her. So, characters. Next thing for tasks. Tasks you can think of as a checklist. Things that you want the person to do within a cartridge. If it's just go from one zone to another, to another, to another, answer these questions, you're done, you don't need tasks. But instead, tasks you can use mostly as a hint to people in a little bit more complicated cartridge. Again, in the blacksmith example, you could have a task that says, buy sword from blacksmith. So, and if someone ever needs to quit a cartridge and resume it later on, tasks are a good thing, because then once the person resumes it, okay, where was I? Oh, here's a task. I need to buy a sword from the blacksmith. So it keeps, I like to use them, it keeps the players on track. And if you try and maybe say something cryptic about, well, it looks like you're going to go fight this dragon or whatever, well, okay, what do I need to do? Here are some tasks to get ready. So that just cuts through, it allows you as an author to communicate to the player. If you don't understand what I'm getting at in the story, here's it in plain English. So it makes it a lot easier. Timers, exactly that. There are countdown timers and interval timers. So if you have one story that maybe the player has to escape from a burning building within 30 seconds or they die, then you can set up a timer. Count down 30 seconds. If the player hasn't arrived at this zone before 30 seconds is up, then player dies. You have to continue from wherever you left off before. So you can do that. The interval timers, those could be done, I'm trying to come up with one example. one other cartridge that I created, it had someone running to different checkpoints out on a trail, just to see if they could get to one cache fast enough. So in order for me to show how much time they had left, I had to use an interval timer. And just every 3 seconds, I would then update the zone that says, hey, you have 100 seconds left. You have 97 seconds left. So that's one of the things that you can use timers for. Again, you don't have to use all of these in the cartridge. I'm explaining what is available. And then later on, as you get more experience doing this, then you might want to take up something else and say, hey, I have this idea. I can't accomplish it with what I'm doing currently. Maybe there's something else in Wherigo. So it gives you just an idea about what's available. That's what I'm doing. Variables. In the dragon example again, the variable could be how much gold you have. You're just storing some information. So you have 500 pieces of gold. That's all the variable is. Also, variables are used in this next, this other thing down here called inputs. When you ask someone a question, then you have to store, the answer is stored in a variable. And then you check that versus the correct answer. So that's also what inputs are. You just ask the player a question. And it could be multiple choice, it could be open-ended, which you definitely have known about in Kit. So I will be covering that because there is a gotcha that Kit covers that you'll need to know in here to ask questions. The final thing is media. Pictures and sound. So pictures, relatively easy to understand. Please do stick to JPEGs. Some of the Garmin devices, they don't like PNGs. Other ones don't like GIFs. So just stick to JPEGs, which shouldn't be that hard. A lot of people, they go out, I go out on the trail and I take pictures of each zone and then I upload them to, I put them in my cartridge, and every zone has a picture of what the person is actually going toward. So it makes it easier also for the person if they're lost. Say, okay, I'm going here, because the Garmin devices, they don't have a nice convenient map. So needed pictures on that. You can do some sound, but the problem with the sound though is the Garmin devices, again, don't play sound. There's a complicated explanation where you can make them do beeps and everything. I'm not going to get into that. It was posted in 2008 in the forums. I haven't heard too much about people using that these days. You can use WAV files or MP3s for all the cell phones. I do recommend, though, if you go that route and do sound, make sure that your cell phone and your player app and whatever other player apps that people will be using will actually support the sound. I am trying to coordinate with everyone in the Wherigo Foundation. Let's standardize on all this stuff. Let's make sure that all these player apps do play waves, MP3s, but it's not quite there just yet. There is one other gotcha as well. If you ever play a cartridge that does have sound, make sure you always download the cartridge from Wherigo.com as a Pocket PC format. Very important. If you download it for any of the Garmin formats, then Wherigo.com, its compiler, will strip out all audio from that cartridge. So then you won't really be able to hear that. And one case in point example, one other cartridge I created, you're going fictitiously to this island where Amelia Earhart was last known to be around, and you get there, you find in reality a little bottle that I placed with a code. Once you put in the 4-character code, you then get an audio tape from her navigator, Fred Noonan, and I was acting out all the audio stuff. And so you then have to listen to that because Fred then says that they had to move camp at this bearing, this number, this distance. So then you had to project a waypoint. So hopefully you brought your GPS along with you. So that's one of the things that I did. Just they didn't really have accurate GPS coordinates, so I was trying to do something the navigator would normally have done if he had left an audio tape.
if you get the media, like the sound part working and stuff on the devices, is there any like limit of how long you can do it, or how far in you can take the?
No limit that I know of at the moment. I've done sound for 3 minutes so far.
Yep.
And some cartridges, and because of the sound, I've seen some cartridges be up to 20 megabytes in size.
Yeah.
There is a limit though on Wherigo.com, however. I believe that it cuts it off at probably about 25 megabytes that you can only upload a cartridge for. I'd have to check on the exact number.
Okay.
But if you have a very large cartridge, it just will refuse to accept the cartridge.
Would you, if you were creating a cartridge with media, with sound, would you put a disclaimer?
Yes, I tried that. Funny story, actually. Because on the cache page, I said, this is not compatible with any of the Garmin units. And if you have a cell phone and you're playing it on a cell phone, which is the only way, then please make sure it's downloaded on the Pocket PC format and not any of the Garmin formats. The reviewer did not like that.
Really?
He then said, no, you can't do that because it violates Groundspeak's no brands. And it's like, wait a minute, but the Groundspeak, but the Garmin Wherigo player is an officially licensed application from Groundspeak. And he said, nope, can't mention Garmin. Okay, so I can just kind of hint to people that one of these formats you can download for it. All the other ones, it won't work. Please test it out before you get out of the field. That's how I got around that. And
I remember I had a similar thing, but I was using the word Magellan and I wasn't allowed to use it. So I changed the title of the cache to Ferdinand Magellan.
I did mention that directly to Groundspeak later on. Hey, this is the issue. Some people are reporting this because other people came to me and said, hey, I can't tell people I've tested it on these players what's going on. So I then went over to Groundspeak and they weren't really that helpful. They just said, well, you have to follow whatever the reviewers, we give the reviewers a lot of latitude, whatever the reviewers want. So you just have to be careful.
Yeah, we've all had our run-ins with reviewers.
Especially in that area.
Okay, that's media, and then finally cartridge down here is just that first screen that you saw. If you wanted to edit the name of the cartridge, you can do that. If you want to tweak the starting coordinates, you can do that. Anything you want right there. So, also, there are these events now up top. So if you want to maybe tell the player something when they begin the cartridge, then this is where you do that. And I'll go over more about that later on.
Don't mind me.
Okay.
You want to say where the flashing light?
Oh,
On the GoPro. On the GoPro.
okay. Okay, so we'll start first by creating zones. And one thing that I do recommend for everyone, when you're creating a Wherigo cartridge, have the idea thought out in your mind. Don't just think, okay, I want this, maybe that, maybe this. Wherigo Kit is about the only builder out there that makes it ridiculously easy to change the order of the zones that you want people to visit in your cartridge. Any other builder, it takes a little working around to do.
So do you suggest a script, like basically an outline?
Come up with the idea in your head first. That I have maybe 5 locations I want to take someone. I want to have maybe one character as well that they interact with, and here's what that person says. So just have the idea in your head. It makes it a lot easier here in order to create the cartridge. And I'll be going over one way that I suggest to create cartridges, but you can do them really any way that you want. So one way is for zones, add all your zones at one time. Just go through first zone, second, third, fourth, final cache right there, and then on subsequent screens that I'm going to lead you through, it makes it a lot easier just to select a zone instead of saying, okay, now I have to create a new zone. But I'll mention creating a new zone elsewhere in the builder. So, in order to keep things a little bit easier, then I'm going to call them zones 1 through 3. So we know which zone is first, second, and third in this schema. So now when you click on one of these, this thing up here, this label changes. And that will show you the list of whatever this is. So it's not quite intuitive that you have to do that in order to create, do your zones or items, but that's what it's doing. Okay, so zone, I want to add a new zone. I'm going to call it Zone 1. And I'm going to say for the description maybe starting zone. I don't have any media just yet, no pictures that I want to add, I'll do that later on. No icon. Media is when you tap on a zone, then it shows that media. It shows whatever picture you associate with it. When a zone is shown in a list on the player, that's what the icon is. A little icon appears next to it. You can make it kind of the same or different. A lot of the players will, if you use the same media, will resize automatically your larger media to make it into an icon whenever it's used. I'll come back to visible and active and all, and those are extremely important. Let me go ahead and set the coordinates here. Okay, all right, so I just set the coordinates based on whatever. That's going to be the first zone. Now these generate points, because for Wherigo, there are shapes for zones. But I mentioned to you before, just act like it's a regular point. That's true, but it still requires a shape. And so just think of it as a square. So generate points. So what's the border around? Usually, I think I've suggested about 5 meters around. That seems to be generally good enough. So that's 20 meters. All right, and again, great from an address. Those don't work in this builder, so we're going to stay away from them. Same thing with view shape and edit online. Don't bother with those. The other information that you'll need is distance range. So in Wherigo, there are several things that you can do with zones. There's distance and proximity. For one, I'll go into those first. Distance is how far the player can be, well, the maximum distance the player can be for that zone to show up in the list. So maybe you tell the player, well, you're going to just walk over this way in this direction, and eventually you might come across something interesting. So the player walks over, no zones are displayed, and then all of a sudden, hey, I see a zone now. That's what distance is. So if you're maybe, you can set it maybe to 100 meters if you want, and they have to be within 100 meters in order to see the zone, or you can do something else. And this little, it's not going to show up. Well, it shows it over here. -1 is always show it. Okay. Now it's always going to be displayed no matter how far I am. And unless you have a specific reason for not showing the zone based on how far the player is, just put it as -1. Everything for Wherigo Kit is -1 anyway.
What does that mean again?
It's just one shortcut that the builder, that the Groundspeak builder uses to say always show it.
Always, what are you always showing?
The zone. When you have, you played cartridges, right? Yeah. Okay. So in that list of zones, then you can see whatever zone you're going toward, right?
Okay.
So -1 means no matter how far away you are, you can be on the other side of the country, and it will show that zone with -1.
Okay.
If If you have it instead to be 1 kilometer, then if you go 2 kilometers away, it's not going to show that on the list. You have to get closer. And
So if you were going to a church on the other side of the street and it was 200 meters away, if you had 100 meters, it wouldn't show until you were within 100 meters.
that's right.
But if you're -1, standing at that point, you're going to see the next point is over
Always.
that way.
Yes, it will always show it.
Okay.
And and as you can see, there are a lot of options available to you as an author for Wherigo. And just coming up maybe with a scenario that makes sense to you to use that option. That's what they're there for. If you don't need it, don't use it. If you don't need characters, don't use characters. If you don't need items, don't use items, no tasks. It's whatever you want to create. You don't have to have everything. Proximity, on the other hand, this is where we get really interesting. Okay, Wherigo has a couple of events for zones.
A couple of what?
Events, right here. So this is the event list, and I mentioned already distance. And so there's distance, proximity, on enter, on exit, and or zone state changes, I don't worry about right now. So when one of these things happens, then you can tell Wherigo to do something. So if you set distance to be 100 meters, when you get 100 meters or closer to the zone, you can have Wherigo do something. Say maybe, hey, check you're getting close. Check your list of zones now, and you can see how to get to it. Proximity is the same thing. It's you can think of it as distance being in the outside circle, and then proximity being a smaller inside circle. Wherigo Kit, by the way, always uses proximity. The reason being, for Garmin devices, if I were to use on enter, and that's what you would think of. When someone enters a zone, this happens. But with Garmin devices, you actually have to zero out in order to trigger on enter. And I don't know about you all, but whenever I've had difficulty zeroing out a cache. So, and why would you make someone actually have to get a 0 on their GPS in order to display something to the zone? So that's why Wherigo Kit always uses proximity. Like, oh, okay, when you get within 3 meters or 3, 4, 5 meters or something of the zone, that's close enough.
And you can even customize that too. If you want to be really easy, you can say if you're within 100 meters of the flag, it sets it off. So, or you can, if you feel like, oh, I want them for something like the geocache, you want to say you don't want to have a huge zone. So you can say the geocache is actually 1 meter, so that way when you're walking towards the group of trees, it doesn't say, oh yeah, you're close enough, because you're not. If it's a group of cedars, you want to know. Well, you want it to keep counting, the arrow to keep pointing, and the countdown to keep going until you're at 0, not just 5 or 10.
It depends. Yes, it depends on the situation. Then,
Yeah.
If you're actually trying to guide them to the cache itself, then make that proximity a little bit smaller. If you're trying to guide them to a house or just a tree in the park for another stage, then you can make it a bit larger. And that also helps when someone's cell phone or GPS isn't quite having a good day, and and there's some interference in getting a good signal. I'm going to go over these events in just a little bit as well, a little bit of more detail, especially proximity, because we're going to be using that to create this test cartridge. Entering a zone, I mentioned before, just Garmin, you have to zero out everything else. You can actually, it actually takes into account a lot of the players would take into account whatever shape of the zone, the boundaries. Exit is something quite interesting. When the person does, I think it's does on enter, and then they step away and leave the zone, then you can have something go on. I don't know of anyone who really uses on exit. You do? Oh, okay. What do you use it for?
If I read it wrong, I should have ended the message.
In a cartridge, what do you, did you create a cartridge using on-exit?
Yes,
Oh,
I always do. I always have a pop-up message when the release is on.
okay. That would be a good, that would be one way to do it too, yes. So again, depending on what you want to do, how you want, how you imagine your cartridge working. Again, though, you're the author. You're trying to give someone a good time. You're trying to amuse people. You're trying to show them something. So anything that really fits with what you're trying to do, try it out. Okay, I'm going to go back over to basic information and proximity. I'm going to set that then. Set that to about 10 meters this time. Show objects in this zone when, so if you put any character or an item or something in a zone for the player to interact with, then that's what this is asking about. So usually, well, when they're in proximity, then just show the character. Okay. The only two things really left are visible and active. These are extremely important and fundamental to the way that Wherigo operates with zones. If a zone is active, then things can happen. If a zone is not active, it's not going to show up in the list. Any events that you put out for that zone won't happen. Visible, however, if the zone is active but not visible, it doesn't show up on the player's list, but things can still happen. If they get close to a zone proximity, you can have things go on. If on distance, any event or whatever, if that zone is active but not visible, stuff can still happen, but the player won't even know the zone exists. So why would you want to do that? One cartridge I played in North Carolina had me. It was supposed to be done sort of at night. It was mostly like a horror type theme. So as you're walking on this trail, you suddenly your cell phone screams at you. So what happened was the person put a zone right in the way of where you were walking. So once you got right to that zone, it played that audio clip.
Can you imitate?
I'm not going to scream at that.
Oh, but we want to hear.
You've never been asked that before.
On the haunted attraction stuff, sometimes I just scream for the heck of it in order to startle people. Scaring people's fun. I have stories on that. Okay, let's see. So the first zone is 8.123. I'm going to have to make a note now. Because now I don't want these to be too far away. So 45, 8.123, and 75, 4.123, I think. Okay. All right. So I tell it, create this zone, and it does that. As I mentioned before, I'm going to do 3 zones in this cartridge. So I'm just going to create my second zone, zone 2, and then this one is going to be 45, I don't know, let's see, 8.200 and 75, 4.123 then. And I'm going to again say 20 meters around. Distance range -1. And I'm going to leave something in here that's going to be a blatant error. So if some of you spot it, don't worry. I know that something is wrong. So 45, 8.200, and then 75, 4.123, and okay, and then the third zone 200. Just for the heck of it. And again, 20 meters around. Okay. In proximity again, I'm going to do 10 meters. Okay. Now, I'm wondering, can anyone tell me maybe what I have been doing wrong so far? It's not going to be that apparent, but I'm going to show you right now what happens.
Maybe that they're all visible, and
You're right.
so
They're all
somebody
active
can,
and visible.
somebody can choose, do I really want to go to step 1 and step 2, and I can just go to step 3.
That's right. And I'll demonstrate what happens now. Now that I have zones, I can actually show something. So emulator. Okay, first then,
See you first.
yeah, first you have to compile it. So compile the cartridge. Okay. Okay, cartridge compiling. That makes it so that you can play it through on a player. So it's up in tools, and it's actually called compile a cartridge. So I'm always going to do Pocket PC because that does not strip anything out of my cartridge. And I'm going to compile it. Yeah, I want to put it on the desktop, save, close. Now I can go up into my emulator. And hey, I have maps. That map fix worked. So cart, yep, play. Again, this is close to what people would usually see on a cell phone or the Garmin. Play. And now I have my zones, which, where did I put them? Oh, they're over here.
How can you tell where they are?
Yeah, they're really tiny.
These little dots.
There we go.
There. Oh.
Okay, so hey, I have one cartridge already and 3 zones. So let's drag David over here, and he's close to zone 2. David, by the way, was one of the lackeys who actually worked a lot on Wherigo.
You didn't just name them on the fly.
No.
Now he's creating souvenirs.
He actually left Groundspeak.
So
And now he's right there.
I didn't have to create souvenirs.
No.
It's like-
Souvenirs, at least, are a good way to get people to do things. I hear it all the time. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm going to have to go out on New Year's Eve to get a souvenir.
That's the
If you
plot.
don't want the souvenir, then don't go out.
This is the plot of Tron, where the guy just disappeared, but then everyone thought he was dead, but he's actually in the computer for the movie Tron.
Lawnmower Man, too, then. Okay, so one thing to notice then on the emulator, and I'll go back in just a moment, all the zones are this one color, it's purple. So let's see something that's important. Let me go back to zone 2, and I just double clicked on it in order to bring that up. I could also highlight it and go down and edit. That would do the same thing. So let's make it maybe invisible. So it's still active, but invisible. Come up here. Once again, I have to recompile it in order to pick up on my change. Yes, I want to replace it. And then emulator. Should have probably made these a bit larger. Now I have one zone that's red. And that's telling you as an author that that zone is active, but it's just not being shown. So it's trying to color code the zones for you. If I were to come into here and make it as inactive, because you are the author, then an inactive zone would actually appear grayed out. Well, it doesn't matter. Again, if the zone is inactive, it doesn't matter what the visibility state is. Because Wherigo says, oh, you're inactive? I don't know you. So it won't do anything with it. So once again, compile. Then come up to the emulator. And so there you go. Oops. So the red one, again, is active but invisible. The purple one is both active and visible, and then the grayed out one is inactive. Doesn't matter if it's visible or not. So that's done to help you figure out what your cartridge actually looks like.
So if somebody was to walk over the invisible cartridge, in theory, if you had it set up properly, you could have a message come up if
Sure.
like you could say, oh, you just saw something, or here's a hint for the cache, or something like that. Okay. Neat.
Yeah, so let's do that then.
Yeah.
First, though, I'm going to edit the coordinates of the cartridge, that way I can actually get closer to where it is when I go back into the emulator. Yeah, 84, okay. Alright, makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and tell the player something when they go into a zone. So how do we do that? Well, we come in here, let's do zone 1. Now, so when the player is within proximity to the zone, because these are some of the events that we have over here. So the player's in proximity, I highlight that, then I go down here to new script, because I haven't done anything yet. Then it comes up here, enter new group name. Group names don't matter. I don't know what they were trying to do with group names actually, but it doesn't matter what, it doesn't show up in the cartridge, but you can make your own notes for the group name. They show up here as well. We're going to be on this screen a lot later on. So here, for up here, these are just some conditional things where, for instance, if the player has this amount of gold, then allow this sword to be bought. That's what if then means. If then else, if the player has this amount of gold, allow the sword to be bought. Else, in other words, if they don't have that amount of gold, then say, hey, you need to get more money. That's what if then or an if then else means. But what we want is to add an action, because when the player gets pretty close to the zone proximity, then we want something to happen, an action to happen. So, tons of actions available. So as not to overwhelm you just for a moment, let's focus on just showing that pop-up, showing the message to the player. So I'm going to look in here, show what? Show a message. Where is that? It's down here. Show a message. So I click on that, and it says, okay, show a message box. And this is where it's kind of weird on the emulator, weird on any builder. So, well, what do I do now? You click on this little hyperlink. And it says, okay, so enter whatever text you want to show. So just do hi. And there are a couple of things here. You can show pictures over here by doing media, and I don't have any media just yet in this cartridge. So you can't do that just yet. You can also actually get really specific if you want and allow people to click on one of two buttons for choices, yes or no, or something. You can get really specific. I'm not going to go over that right now. So, okay. Okay. So this is what happens now when the player is within proximity to his zone. I'm going to show a message to the player. Okay. All right. That's zone 1. So again, let's compile it. And let's play the cartridge. So now, here, zone 1 is down here because it's the only active and visible zone. So I'm going to drag David until he's within proximity to it, and it says hi. Now, of course, if I back him off and then drag him down again, hi! That could get annoying. So, because it can get annoying, let's make sure that the zone doesn't show up after that. So, once again, zone 1, when a player is in proximity, I'm going to edit the script now because I already have something there for when someone's within proximity. So, okay, edit. So, okay, there's my show a message. So after the message is shown, add an action again. This time we want to make the zone inactive. That way it doesn't keep showing, saying hi, hi, hi all the time. So I'm going to look in here, and I'm going to say set zone to inactive, or, well, active or inactive. So it's saying over here, set what zone? Okay, I click on this. It says, well, these are my zones. I'm in the first zone. I'm going to say, okay, that zone. And then active, true or false? Well, I want it false. In other words, inactive. Okay, save it. So that shows up in the list of things for Wherigo to do. Okay. Now, once again, let's see what happens. And yeah, I'm going to be compiling this a lot because I want everyone to see step by step what's going on. Play. So here we go again. So drag him once more. It says hi, and immediately the zone is turned to inactive because Wherigo does not wait. If you say, and that's one of the key things, both a strong point for Wherigo and also something that people go, what? What did we just do? It didn't wait. And I'll give you a better example of what's going on as well. Again, when a player is within proximity, this time I'm going to add another message and say bye. Okay, so now whenever I play the cartridge, and the player goes over into the zone, bye. Well, wait, I had a high one. What's going on? As I mentioned, Wherigo will not wait for you. So you told it exactly what to do. You said, show this message, hi. It did that. You then told it, make this zone as inactive. It did that, like 2 milliseconds later. And then you said, show another message, bye. It did that 2 milliseconds or something later on. It went really fast.
So all you see is the last one.
That's right. All you see is the last one. So how do we get around that?
How long?
What? No. You could do that, but then what happens if it takes the person a little bit longer to read the message? There's actually an easier way to do that.
Dialogue.
That too, yes. I wanted to, let me do the dialogue first, and then I'll show another step. So I'm going to delete these 2 lines, yes. Delete this one, yes. So now I just have set as inactive. So there's one, well, show a series of dialogue messages way down toward the bottom. So this is now going to be the list of what I'm going to show. So add a dialogue. So I'm going to do hi. Now I'm going to add another one. I'm going to do bye. So save. Okay. 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 So now, once again, zones go over in here. There's hi, and then there's bye. So, much better. There's another way to do it. I will show you that because there's one thing that you might want to use it for. So I'm going to edit the script again. And instead of showing a series of dialogue messages, because what happens if we want to then set the next zone as active, but only after they've actually read everything? Instead of saying zone 1 inactive, now do the dialogues, and now show the next zone. What if I only want the zone to be active only after they've finished reading it? So again, show a message. Hi. And this time though, I'm going to do script to run when button clicked. In other words, it'll wait, and it'll then say, okay, when you click OK to say, I've read whatever message you have up, then what to do? Well, this looks familiar again, this little interface. So I'm going to add an action, and this time I'm going to set my second zone as active. All right. Click OK, 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 OK. You tell where it goes out a lot. OK, OK. So now I'm going to do inactive and invisible on zone 2. Zone 3 is now going to be inactive and invisible. That's good. Now zone 2, when they're in proximity, I'm going to make zone 3 active. And I'm also going to make zone 2, yeah, that's zone 2, as inactive. That way they don't trigger the same thing. This is something that Wherigo Kit does automatically for you. Okay, zone 2 and zone 3, I don't need anything here because I don't have anything. And zone 1, I did set zone 1 as inactive. Good. Okay. All right. So that. All right, back to the emulator. So I have my first zone, and that's the only one as active. So if I try and go over any of these, nothing happens. Good. So I go in here, it says hi, and it waited, and now zone 2 is active. I go up to zone 2, and now zone 3 is active. Because I didn't have anything but make zone 2 as inactive and zone 3 as active. This active switching you'll have to do a lot because you don't want to leave the zone active, because if the person exits it and then comes back in, then everything will happen again. So I have to do that.
For those of you who came out to the event last night and tried the Wherigo that was recently created, you can imagine the chaos that would happen there as you sort of crisscross in the same space. You'd be ending up in a loop. It would be like stepping on a trap if you accidentally step in the wrong one and you do it. At the same time, too, I suppose you could take a shortcut, and if you could step on the last zone too early and take a shortcut through the whole thing. But of course, with something like I had, if there's no numbers to your zones to know how you're doing, you could, maybe you're on the first and maybe you're on the last one. Maybe I'll redesign it. Endless loop.
I should point out, by the way, that one of the things that I've tried to do with Wherigo Kit is to make it so that you can export the cartridge into Groundspeak Builder and into other builders like Wherigo. So once you're done with Kit on creating the basic part for the cartridge, feel free to export it, import it into Groundspeak Builder, add more stuff to it, or just play around with it. See how Kit created your cartridge. So that's a good idea to just play through. Create with Kit, open with Groundspeak Builder, and see what's going on, where all the events are, how that's done. Very easy to do on that. Of course, because of that, I can't really add a lot of cool stuff that I could have done with Kit, like making it so that you can encrypt text so that people can't open it in Notepad and see what you wrote. And later on, toward the end of this, I'll get into trying to prevent against people from hacking. Because yeah, some of you I've heard are creative. I can be evil to people who are creative. Okay, so what we have here, really simple cartridge. Just go to one place, it shows you a message. Go to another place, and then go to a third and final location. Exactly what we have with Kit. That's so now let's do one other thing that Kit offers, and then we can start on a couple of other things. I'll open the floor to everyone, and I'll let you all choose what you'd like me to cover after that. But first, let me go over inputs. Again, inputs are, asking the player a question, open-ended, multiple choice, and then you get to do things based on the player's answer. Maybe tell them, try again, or, hey, great, here's the next zone. So what I want to do here is, when they enter the second zone, I want to ask them a question. What year is it, or something? And based on whatever answer they provide, either tell them, here you go, here's the third zone, you answered correctly, or maybe ask them the question again. Or I could probably send them back to the first zone, and then they'd have to play through the entire cartridge again. So for an input, as I mentioned before, whatever answer the person provides has to be stored somewhere in Wherigo, and that's in a variable. So I'm going to start with a variable, and I'm just going to add one, and I'm going to call it answer. Now, later on, keep in mind that if it says, anywhere else it says answer, this is the variable I created. The builder doesn't store answer anywhere else. So just don't get confused on the naming. And variable type down here is just a string, is just text. Just a string of numbers and letters. That's all that is.
Letters.
A number, by the way, is number, and flag is either true or false. But we're just going to stick with string because that makes it easy. So there we go. There's our variable. So whatever they answer for this input this question I'm going to ask, it's going to be spread. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add an input. And the name is just for me. That way I know what this is called. No one ever sees the name that you give an input when they're playing through Wherigo. But it's very helpful when you're creating this cartridge. So I'm going to do year question. So the text down here. What year is it? Okay. So this is what I get for the possible types of questions that I can ask. They want it to be text, which is open-ended. They want it to be multiple choice. Give them 3 or so many choices. For multiple choice, do try to keep it at 3, because most players will only display a maximum of 3 choices on the screen at one time, and some players might not know that you have to scroll in order to see the other choices. So if you really want to be evil, then give them 4 choices, and the correct one will be the last. True, false is just a yes or no question. So, all this to be text. And now the input variables. Where am I storing their answer? Well, it's going to be a variable, and I call it answer. That makes it easy. Okay. So I have my question here. Now I'm going to go back up to my zone, and when they're in proximity to this one, then I'm going to delete this, because I want to ask them a question. Delete, yes. Add an action. So now I'm going to show the question. So get input from the player. So you want to ask them a question, you want to get an answer, get input. So what input? Well, it's my year question. Okay. All right. So far, we have it where the person enters the second zone, they're asked the question. Well, what do we do with it? What do we do with the answer? How do we tell them, is it right or is it wrong? We go back to the input. Click on this, and when the player inputs data. Hey, cool, okay. When they answer the question, so again, hey, same window, good. Now remember, if, then, and else. So let's check what I want to do is, if the player answers with 2015, then say, hey, good answer, you got it right, and show the third zone. If they don't answer correctly, then I want to say, no, try again, and and ask the question again, until eventually they get it right or look at a calendar. For those of you who are watching this on videotape, and the year is 2016, this is going to sound dated. Okay, so here's where the list on the left side doesn't quite make as much sense. But what you're doing is you're comparing the answer that they gave to see if it's equal to 2015. Follow so far? Cool. So I'm going to say, well, I need to check the answer that they gave. So it's a variable. So come in here. Here's the answer. Okay? That's that one. So if answer, then the operand. Equals. Okay? And you can do all sorts of other things. If they answer with a number, then you can see if the number is greater than that. Or in my example before with the dragon and buying a sword of gold, then if they don't have 5,000 gold pieces or whatever it is, then they can't buy the sword. This is what you'd be doing. If the variable, the amount of gold they have is greater than or equal to 5,000, then let them buy the sword. So this is the same type of thing that you'd be doing for that. So if it's equal to, okay. So now I'm going to give it a value. 2015. Okay. Well, that looks good. If the answer is equal to 2015. Okay. Makes sense. All right. So here we go. This is what Wherigo is currently doing. If the answer is equal to 2015, do something else, do something else. And end means that this if else stuff stops there. So you can add things afterwards. So now to insert something, I just click on one of these and it's going to insert, I think, above the line. So I'm going to come here. If the answer equals 2015, well, what are we going to do? We're going to set the third zone as active. And we're also going to tell them, again, show a message. Correct. Okay. So here's what I have so far. The answer is 2015. Then show them the next zone and tell them the message. It doesn't matter really which order you put this, because Wherigo will execute these both at the same time, pretty much at the same time. So it doesn't matter on that. Now else, which I'm going to come here, else tell them to try again. Now remember, I just mentioned that Wherigo executes everything immediately. So we don't really want to then say, we don't want to say right here after that, ask the question again. Because what you're going to get is whatever you put second, it's going to do. So instead, in this message one, when scripture run when the button is clicked. So now I want to ask them a question again. Get input from a player. So down here, I want to ask them the year question again. Okay, 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 okay. So, and the builder mentions right here that that message has something else that's going on when they click the button. So later on when you're drilling into the cartridge trying to figure out what to add or what's going on, then you can always come in here, edit, go up here as well, and see what the script is. All right. Now there's one other thing that I suggest everyone do, and that's when, see, this is when the player inputs data. So I need to get have here this get input. When you show a message to someone, when you get input, no matter what, you don't really want, if someone is standing there and your zone is still active, and because I had this happen one time, I was playing on a Garmin Colorado, and the Garmin units have a really fun bug, not so fun for the player. So I was in, I think it was Kentucky or Tennessee at this Veterans Memorial. There was this tank sitting there, and the question said, oh, you need to get, I think the year or something that the tank was donated to this Veterans Memorial. So you're actually moving around trying to find which plaque it is and where the year is. Unfortunately, the Colorado had some coordinate drift, and I exited the zone, and then I came back into the zone, and it was still active. And the Garmin units, when you have a question up, and you exit and come back in, and it tries to show a message or show another input, then it crashes the entire device and turns it off. All progress lost. So that's not a good idea. Colorado. Yeah, I bought a Colorado when Wherigo came out, and I tried it out at one other cache, and was like, oh, this Colorado is off compared to my 60 CSX. I don't like that. So for the longest time, though, I carried the Colorado as a glorified PDA and found everything with a 60. Then, yeah. Huh?
Not alone.
Oh, really? Dual wielding. Okay, and then finally the 62 and the 64 came out, and yay, finally one unit. Don't know where to go. Oh well, I have cell phones now. All right, so back here again. If I leave this input and the person goes out of the zone, comes back in, then it's going to have that problem. So what I do is I just come into here, add an action to disable the zone. So set the zone that I'm currently in, zone 2, as inactive. And I like to do that before the input. So if you do want to change things around, you can just click on that, move down a line, and it'll move it down a line. Or you can move it up a line like that. So you can sort some things here. Okay. All right. So to summarize, before we go and look at what we've done in the emulator, zone 1 will just show a message box saying, hi. And then it'll show you zone 2. Zone 2, you'll go in. You'll have to answer the year question right. If you get it wrong, it'll just say, no, try again. And then it'll ask you again and again and again until you eventually get it right. Once you do get it right, it will then set zone 3 as active, and you can then continue presumably to the final cache. So let's see that. And I do recommend, though, as you go through and build cartridges, go ahead and once you do a couple of things, then run it in the emulator. See how it's going so far. Check yourself. There's nothing worse than trying to do everything at one time and then going in the emulator and seeing, oh, this is not what I have intended. Where is it breaking? I have to change things around. So, yeah, do make copious use of the emulator. And whenever I'm developing any of my cartridges, even the really script-heavy cartridges that I have to edit the script itself, I have Groundspeak's Builder open at the same time. And once I make a couple of changes and I want to test something out, I load it back into the Builder, compile it, run it in the emulator, play through it. Okay, this looks right. And I do that a lot. And especially the Builder, the emulator will then crash if I accidentally type something wrong whenever I'm editing the code. So it does help. All right. So once again, come here, and we get to the second zone here. What year is it? Let's see. Well, it's not the future yet, but it will be. I'll try again. Okay, what year is it? 2015. Correct. And then that third zone pops up. Then I get to go over to the third zone. So far, we have zones, we have inputs, exactly what Wherigo Kit offers. And now we're ready to take off and do some other stuff. Do other fun things, add a little bit more variety to the cartridges. So is there anything else that you all would like to go over in more detail to see how it's done?
Well, a quick and easy question, I guess, is if you, let's say zone 3 in this case was the geocache, is it just as simple as what it is there right now? Like you just maybe put a line of text in there saying you're at the geocache?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing special you have to do to say it's a geocache?
No,
Like other than tell the player you're looking for a geocache?
yeah, even in the description here, this is the cache.
Okay.
I can just do that. And then whenever I run it, I'm going to make this active right now. That way we don't have to go through the cartridge. Okay. So zone 3 is active right now, so I can just go to it. But in the list here with zone 3, you can see this is the cache. So that's what you can do with the description. So, anything else? Go ahead.
Can you go over the completion codes for me, please? Or you don't want to go in there?
Ooh,
No?
That's going to be interesting. Okay. The completion codes, in order to show them in...
I guess let's just go back one step
Okay.
for people that are
Forget
really
it.
new here.
Forget.
No, we can still talk about it. I was
No,
just
no.
going to say, let's just say what the completion code is,
Okay.
because I think there's still a couple people in this room that maybe haven't done it where I go.
Okay. Both completing cartridges and the completion codes. They're two separate things, but somewhat related. Okay. For setting a cartridge as, for completing a cartridge itself, when you're on Wherigo.com, and you come up to a cartridge, there's this thing called unlock. So if you click that, then on here it's called unlock code. So you just get to put in a code and say, hey, this is unlocked, and nothing really happens on the side except it says you completed it. You can't query by it, you can't filter by it, you can't say, give me all cartridges I have not completed. Nothing right now on Wherigo.com does anything with that. What I want to do for the Wherigo Foundation stuff is change that. Once you, on the cell phones, once you play through it and then you say the cartridge is complete, in your cartridge, you then say mark cartridge is complete. Then what I want is the player app to contact the Wherigo Foundation site, which later on hopefully will be Wherigo.com, and allow you then to write a cartridge completion log on that. For people still playing with the Garmins, I can still kind of do the completion code issue, where it shows you a code, you have to put the code into the website, and then it allows you to log a completion log. And once you've marked the cartridge as complete for the Wherigo Foundation stuff, then you get to filter it, not filter it. It counts with your stats. Ooh, we have stats. So now, for currently, if you say mark the cartridge as complete, that works on the Garmin units because you can then upload this save file from a Garmin unit and unlock it on the site. Other than that, you have to use a completion code for any of the cell phones.
But a lot of times they don't work.
Yes, thank you. Completion codes have to be 14 characters. And if the completion code is not, I think it's 14 characters. Should be. If the completion code is not, then you're going to run into a problem. So in order to get around that, trying to make sure about 15 characters, I'm sorry. If you get something longer than that, then all you do is you cut off the end. Just type the first 15 in there and it'll unlock it all the time.
So where does the completion code come from?
Okay. When the completion code is based on the cartridge itself and the name of the person, the account of the person who downloaded the cartridge. from Wherigo.com. Some sort of caching or some math is done in order to create the completion code.
So it's generated.
It is generated all the time. When you click that download button, it's generated, but it's always the same for that cartridge and that person who downloaded it.
It's a unique ID.
Close enough, yes. All right. Should we add a completion code to this?
Sure.
All right.
So you actually have to add it in when you're building the cartridge?
Yes. Wherigo Kit does it automatically for you. It puts at the very end a message box that says, hey, the completion code is this. And also for those people who want to save it for later on, it also puts it it also creates an item and puts the completion code as the item's description. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's
Kit
the
handles
end.
that. Yeah, Kit handles that all in the background.
And what happens if you're building it off of,
You have to do it yourself.
and how do you do that?
All right, let's do that. So in zone 3, when they enter the cartridge, let's enter the zone. Let's show the completion code. So proximity again. Add an action. I want to show a message to the player. Now this is where things get funky. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What I just typed in were 2 square braces.
Backwards?
Yes.
The backwards square?
Close
Oh,
braces.
Yeah, the closed square braces.
Close braces.
Yes. Because you have to know a little bit about, to do this, you have to know a little bit about what Wherigo is doing in the background. And whenever you're actually saying something to the player, then what Wherigo Builder is doing is it's enclosing your text in 2 square braces. So you have to get outside of that for a moment, which is why it's starting to get funky, because the next thing is ... which means that now I'm going to append whatever else to this. So I'm going to append player.completion code. I actually have to get that right because it is case sensitive. And then I have to get around the builder and say ... open the square braces.
Go back into the building.
That's right.
Are there spaces between the dots and the braces?
Yes. There don't have to be. There do have to be spaces between player.completion code and the 2 dots.
At the beginning and the end?
Yes.
Where it goes over.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't add something that made this a little bit easier to do. Maybe it was next on their list. I
Oh,
don't know.
maybe they figured you'd give it up by then. Got onto a multi.
Usually though, once you get a handle for what's going on with the builder, then you kind of know what to do. Like now you know how to do these messages and how to set zones and everything, so you can get really fast with those. So let's make sure I have this right. And okay, that's still active, good. All right. All right. Now let's see if I actually did this right. Yay! And the completion code is the builder. And whenever you're on when you're building a cartridge anyway, the builder itself, whenever it compiles it on your computer, it'll just put in some text. Usually it's just builder. When you then upload it to Wherigo.com and download it, then Wherigo.com, because it's built there, will put in the completion code. So that's kind of one of the oddities for using any builder. I don't know if a lot of the other builders have anything that just says show completion code. I have to look in there. I can also then add one item that says completion code. So, you can add an item. You just call it completion code. And I don't need anything more. So add this item. So the third zone now, I can come in here and add an action. So what I want to do is I want to put the item in the player's inventory, and I want to assign the completion code to the item's description, just like where we hit. So that's my item, completion code. Okay, move it to the player. Okay, put it in the inventory, and then. Or actually before that, let's see, set a, which one was it? Set status. I always have to find something on this list. Details, screenshot ahead. I think this is it, what I clicked on before. So for the item here called completion code, I want to set the description equal to, value, which I don't think is going to be easy to do on here. No, I don't know if it's possible to do that without editing the cartridge itself. Because if I do the value right here, it's just going to set it to something called player.completion code. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I'm just going to cancel those changes. Because usually I've always just done it in the source, and that makes it easier. Anything else?
So maybe at this point, in a minute here, we're going to go into a break, and following the break, so during the break it's optional if you have other responsibilities or you just, your mind's been blown enough, you can, those who are interested in taking off, you're welcome to do that, but maybe after we get back, if people have thought of questions, they can certainly ask them, but maybe what we can do is, if you brought up one of your other existing cartridges or one of the more creative ones, you can sort of show in the builder how some of those, how it's been built or some of the zones, and you can sort of give us an inside tour of one of your Wherigos. But
I do want to mention before everyone does break though, that if you do have any questions, if you do want some additional help as you're trying to figure this out, then either contact me directly, I don't mind that, or just go in the Wherigo forums and ask the question. I usually answer questions first in the Wherigo forums, and then I check my email. So if you want to get me really quickly, post in the forums.
What about the foundation?
The Wherigo Foundation, I probably should go over what the foundation exactly is, but Wherigo Foundation, though, all the members in the Wherigo Foundation are actually part of the forum. Okay. And if you ever want to know who is in the foundation, then on the Wherigo Foundation site, there's the Wherigo Foundation link up here, and that tells all the people who are in the foundation and what they're doing.
Okay.
So makes it easier to figure out as well in the forum. And I have everyone, a lot of people's avatars in the forum also posted up here. So if so at least you'll know who you're talking with too. And sometimes I personally won't answer a question on purpose in the forum because it's not the Ask Ranger Fox help desk. I'm trying to build a community, and the only way to do that is to encourage other people to answer questions. So sometimes I will wait, let other people answer questions. If a question remains unanswered, then I'll go ahead and answer that.
Thank you.
so just as before we go on to break and we lose a few people, just have a special This is a thank you for coming out here.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
No, it doesn't quite come to the stand, I just sort of.
Oh, okay.
The stand's on loan.
Statements on loan.
Kim, maybe you could present that plaque again, we'll get a picture, please.
Sure.
So,
I'll try not to give you 4 years. Thanks.
Is that trackable or am I gonna get trackable?
You can make it trackable. Yeah, so I think that's it. So, yeah, we'll take a break, and for those of you who aren't coming back,
If you want some trackables up here that have some trackables you can take and activate, these are just free that give out some events.
yeah, and actually I just got a reminder too, for those of you who are looking for some weekend plans this weekend, there's the holiday train that's coming through Eastern Ontario this weekend, so I believe that it arrives here in Finch at 3 p.m. on Sunday, and it keeps on going west and it goes to Merrickville at 4 p.m. on Sunday. So if you're interested in seeing the brightly lit train, you can find out more about it online. But also, make sure you get a little in advance and not just exactly on time, because it gets, they're expecting quite a few people to come and watch it. So if you come last minute, you might be far away.
Very much in your system.